Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RGVSports.com podcast. I am your host. My name is Jon LaFollette, and I cover high school sports for the Monitor newspaper in McAllen, Texas, and for RGVSports.com for the world at large. If you listen to this, you already know what it is. It's the Area Round Preview podcast. We're doing this a little bit later than we have the last couple of weeks. Mr. Greg is to blame for this. He had a bad case of the Taco Palenque sickness.
Maybe that's what we're going to call it, yeah.
Hashtag no sponsorship.
Hashtag, yeah, well, they're out. I wouldn't want them associated with our food. Or with our
podcast, which is delicious as food.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't know about that. I haven't had some in a while, thanks to Taco. But that's a topic for another time.
If you want to go 3 days without eating, stop by Taco Palenque.
Yeah. They'll get you fixed right up. You lose some weight in no time. No food diet.
Well, we're glad that you're here. We are recording this at 1:30 in the morning, going into Friday.
Yeah, we made it.
From Thursday into Friday. It's been a rough couple of days here, these last couple of days. Greg hasn't been here, been busy with basketball season starting up, tournament time and all that. But we still got a couple. We got 9 games on the docket involving Valley teams here in the area around. Where do you want to start, Greg?
Well, I don't know. What do you think is the most interesting one?
I think the most interesting one is McAllen Memorial Harlingen High.
Well, that's the
one
I'm not just
saying that because you're here to start the show, but I genuinely think this is the more interesting one. Maybe just because these two teams we're more familiar with. Almost every other game of the 9 games, only one has Valley on Valley action. The rest is Valley against non-Valley.
So it makes sense to start here.
Yeah, it makes sense to start here. So let's do it. Let's do this then. This game will be Friday at 7:30 at Bogus Stadium in Harlingen. There's been some split action here either way. Before we get into cases why, first of all, let's just say that we're split about 50-50 here in the office in terms of who's going to win.
Correct.
But there's some who are taking Harlingen, some who are taking McAllen Memorial. You were pretty much laughing off those who think Harlingen is going to win this game.
Well,
why? Give us the case, Mr. McAllen Memorial beat reporter.
It's not that it's definitely going to be a blowout or that McAllen Memorial is substantially better by this huge margin. But what the issue is that everyone has voted McAllen Memorial number 1 all season. So I get confused now where we get to this point of the year and suddenly people want to take Harlingen. And I get that maybe it's this thing that people have sort of trumped up where McAllen Memorial can't win in the playoffs because they got upset one time and then 2 years before that lost games that they should have lost. But whatever it is that people seem to just disrespect McAllen Memorial this time of the year despite the fact that they've been our number 1 team all year and have blown out everybody every game. Now, especially in the first round of the playoffs, maybe they gave people some scare because that game against Laredo United South was a lot closer than it should have been and they needed to score late to get it done. But I still think when you put them up against another Valley team, given that we voted them ahead of all the other Valley teams all year, it would be silly to pick the other guys. So is that, I think you're on my side on this, right?
Yeah, I am. And part of this is what comes down to just let's find a common opponent here. We got San Benito versus Harlingen. San Benito beat Harlingen. And then we had San Benito McAllen Memorial, and Memorial almost dropped 70 points on them.
And to add to that, they both played against McAllen High this year.
Right.
And this was a game that I got to watch both of these, so this is something that I've used a lot in trying to break down this game in my own head. And when McAllen High played against Harlingen High, they played with them for like 2.5 quarters till midway through the third. Harlingen really pulled away. And when McAllen Memorial played McAllen High got every break you could ask for. McAllen Memorial fumbled 4 times and lost all of them in the first half. And McAllen Memorial still ran away with that game, and it wasn't competitive. So we've seen in 2 games against common opponents that McAllen Memorial had a much easier time against those same teams. And yes, Harlingen High's defense has been near the top of their district, but I don't think they've done enough to prove to me that they can slow down Trevor Spates in the McAllen Memorial run game. Because even last week, when Memorial struggled and again needed till the 4th quarter to pull away with the win, Spates still ran for 262 yards and had himself a pretty great day, and he had 3 touchdowns and did stuff on defense and did some stuff on special teams and did everything that he needed to do to help them come away with that win. 250
sounds like a down night for Trevor Spates,
right?
Because we had this assumption he's going to go off for 500 yards every game.
So that's where I am with this. I just think that he's going to get his yards. I haven't seen enough from Harlingen to think that they have the pieces along the line or at linebacker to really shut him down. Not that anybody does, but to even come close enough to keep Memorial off the board a significant amount. And maybe Harlingen's offense has enough speed and enough playmakers. Leo Tienda's been really good all year at the running back. Jesse Castro, the quarterback, is obviously really good. And Michael Allen Gonzalez is the best receiver in that district. But, again, it's just a matter of Memorial's defense hasn't been that bad either, and I think they're going to slow them down more than Harlangen's defense is going to be able to slow down Memorial's run game.
The winner of this gets who?
Oh gosh, you caught me off guard. I forgot to look that up before we got there. I'll pull it up.
Jacob Rodriguez says that he thinks that Miguel Memorial's won't be able to hang. Their defense won't be able to hang with Harlingen. Oh no, that Miguel Memorial doesn't do well against good defenses. I'm not sure which games he's seen.
But I mean, like, what good defenses has Miguel Memorial supposedly played? I mean, you look at who they've played this season, and they've played.
I mean, the district is weak.
The district is very weak. They played a pretty soft non-district schedule. I mean, this is a team that's averaged 500 yards a game. So let's look at is there a time you can think to when they were kind of slowed down or limited this year?
The best defense that they've gone. Yeah, there's nobody I could point to. I mean, United South last week was the best that they've come up against. That was a team they had a lot of speed on defense and they had a lot of playmakers and they got to the ball and they clogged up running lanes and they did everything they had to do. And we saw that Spade still managed to get it done and that the offensive line created just enough openings for him to have a good day. So I don't think that Harlangen's defense is going to present any challenges that group didn't. I don't see why they would be a cut above. Again, just based on the two games against common opponents that we're drawing from here, it just seems to me like McAllen Memorial should be favored just based on what we've seen all year from both teams.
I think I'm with you in taking Memorial, but in terms of if Harlingen wins, I'm not certainly going to be shocked by any means. As you said, this has been one of the more consistent teams throughout the season. I think they lost to San Antonio Reagan, who was state ranked last I saw, and then they lost to San Benito, who's been in the top 10 all season, and they only lost 2 games or one game all season long, something along those lines. So, but I'm with you. This is McAllen Memorial has crushed every Valley team they've played this year. In Harlingen, yes, they're good, but they're still just another Valley team to me. And at least when it comes to facing McAllen Memorial.
Right, I don't think that they're a cut above everybody else. I mean, obviously they're good. They're a good Valley team. But, and like this guy's saying on Periscope now, Jesse Castro's a game changer. He absolutely is.
Yeah, they have guys. Yeah, they are not without guys that can score for them as well. So.
I just don't think that their skill players are, I mean, they're not as good as Trevor Spates is by himself. I just don't see it.
I've said this before, 9.5 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, the team with the best player is usually going to end up winning at the high school level.
Mauro, you think Harlingen's going to win? Can you give us some sort of pitch? We're just talking about how we agree, so I need something.
The common opponent thing, I kind of don't agree with it, or I don't believe it fully, just because in my district, you had Mission Vets beating Roma.
I know, I get it, and then Roma beat whoever, and whoever beat Roma. I get it, but like that, even take away those games, and Memorial's had the more dominant resume all season.
Harlingen's played tougher teams.
Okay.
You have that going for Harlingen. I think that kind of matters just because you figured Memorial didn't have any sense of urgency maybe until last week's by-district game, and then you kind of see what happens when they fall behind. Whereas Harlingen have played, 6 games or 7 games in a tough district where every week they're competing against someone that's more on an even playing field than what McAllen Memorial is.
Yeah, but Memorial saw that close game last week, and they came back to win.
To be fair, 32-6A is tough, but it's tough because of 3 very good teams. Everybody else in that district, like Brownsville Vets was good, but they got blown out by in all 3 of those games, I believe, against San Benito, Harlingen, and Los Fresnos.
If you want to factor in non-district too, I wouldn't argue him on the point that Harlingen's played a way harder schedule. There's no debating that.
Right.
But I just think that, so what, essentially.
Well, I think that counts for something just in terms of preparing players for that. For these playoff games, especially because Memorial doesn't have, I don't know how many returns they have from last season, but I mean they don't have the best track record in the playoffs since Trevor Spates has been there.
Right.
And it's not his fault, but I mean that's.
And I get that, but like I said, last year was the only game where it was really an upset, and they were not supposed to win that game. The years before that, they were not favored in those games. So I don't know. I just think that if you take away the playoff stigma and the sort of the schedule, like you said, I don't know if there's anything to go on based on X's and O's that Harlingen would have the upper hand. I guess I could see it just from the perspective of if you think it would have to be that you think it's going to be something of a shootout, that you think Harlingen's offense is going to be able to move the ball a lot on Memorial's defense, and that their defense will get just enough stops against Spates to hold them. Because like we keep saying, they're not going to shut them down, but Memorial's defense has proven, at least in stretches, especially in first halves, they've struggled for whatever reason, that they can be exploited and that they'll give up some yardage and some points. So if Harlingen comes out hot and can get a lead that way, that also creates an issue for a team that only likes to run the ball in McAllen Memorial. So that would be one thing that could potentially work in Harlingen's favor. But outside of that scenario, I don't see where they win the game.
Right.
Well, even like last week when you were saying how McAllen Memorial was looking ahead to the 3rd round or 4th round or whatever it was, and they were overlooking the first round opponent. Like, we don't know if last week's win maybe shocked them into taking this a little more serious and not falling behind early.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not a wake-up call, I don't know what would do it for them. That's got to be something that puts them back on an every week focus to almost lose that first round game that they were definitely favored in.
Just defensively, I'm looking at Harlingen High here. They only allow 135 rushing yards a game, but you kind of take that with a grain of salt because all the quarterbacks are in this district. So I know that a lot of them are dual threat, but you've got
who are the top rushers are in that district?
Top rushers in this district, Leo Tienda with 1343.
It's their own guy.
The quarterback from Brownsville Vets with 1211. Garza from Brownsville Vets with 1152. Everyone else after that, they're below 1,000 yards. And you've got J.R. Gaitan, quarterback from. So a lot of the top rushers in here are dual threat quarterbacks, and so
nobody who's really even comparable.
Right, and so you just kind of take that with a grain of salt, and just in terms of just trying to put that running defense in perspective. I don't know. I think it is going to be a shootout, though. I think because like we've said about Harlingen High, they've got guys on that offense that can score and that can move the ball. They've been able to go, on offense. They've been able to click against good defenses in the last couple minutes of that Weslaco game earlier this year. Weslaco, as good as their defense is, they could not wrap up Tienda or Castro.
Yeah, but the two tough games they've played, in district against San Benito and Los Fresnos, they scored low 20s. They're not necessarily running up the score on everybody.
True.
I mean, that's why I could see McCallum Memorial 32-21, something like that.
Is that your final score?
Yeah, let's go with that.
32-21?
I didn't have to pick one for the thing this week, but that's what I would have made it.
32-21 Memorial. I don't know what to expect of this game. I'm picking Memorial, but again, like I said, if Harlingen wins, I'm certainly not upset. What about you, Mario? Pick a score.
My go-to is 42.
42 is a lot.
35-31.
Okay.
Harlingen?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Like I said, it's been pretty. I don't want to say 50, it's been 50-50 here in the office, but by and large, we're getting a lot of comments here on Periscope. They're all talking about Harlingen and how Harlingen can win. So it seems like there's a pro-Harlingen consensus here.
In Manny Gomez, they believe.
Now, see, the other thing, to answer your previous question about who they would play next, I had been penciling in Reagan, and then I had to do a double take when you asked me this time because Reagan lost in the first round. So it's going to be either Stevens or Smithson Valley will play the winner of this game.
Okay.
I think it was Smithson Valley who has had the better season of those two. That's the one that's at least got the higher max preps ranking, and that's the team that knocked off Reagan last week. So those would be the most likely opponent next round.
Well, I'm interested. I'm jealous of Mr. Molina or Freddie Gonzalez, whoever's covering this game for the paper at the Valley Morning Star there in Harlingen, because I want to go, not even just to write, just to see it. I want to watch this game.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sure there'll be a live stream somewhere, so maybe I can check it out at the Weslaco game.
Yeah.
Anything else? You want to go to Mario's district? Want to talk about?
Well, so I don't have to get up. Let's talk about your game.
Okay.
Or your games.
Yeah, I got 2 games. My district worked out about the way I thought it would in the first 2 weeks. In the last week here, PSA North loses, Edinburgh Econ loses. So it's just the 2 Weslacos. They play on Friday and Saturday. Weslaco High plays Laredo United at 7.
Is that a rematch of a game?
Yeah, these teams played each other last year. Laredo United won 40-28, something along those lines, if I can recall. Pretty one-handed there. But this game will be at Corpus Christi at Cabana Stadium, 7:30. That is tonight, i.e. Friday morning, as we record this on Friday. There's that. Weslaco East will play Del Rio Saturday at Alamo Stadium in San Antonio at 2 p.m. Those are my 2 games. Which one do you want to talk about first?
We'll start with Weslaco High. I'm intrigued by that one because of the rematch factor. And have you talked to them about this game and what they are looking at heading into it?
Yeah, they're kind of using the Los Fresnos game as a mold for this United team.
That's not the same thing.
Well, in terms of being a pass-heavy offense,
there's pass heavy, and then there's the Laredo United.
Right. But in terms of the game plan, in terms of just trying to jam up receivers, slow receivers down, that's what changed the game for them in that Los Fresnos game last week. The first couple drives, Los Fresnos receivers were just getting wide open because defenders were playing off the ball. And they started jamming him, started making things difficult for him, and then things never really got open for Rene Ortega there, and he started throwing some interceptions. Not saying it's going to work quite as easily here against Laredo United. Their quarterback, if I can find his name here, I'm trying to see it.
Ignacio Tellez.
Ignacio Tellez, yes. He has thrown for 3,402 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions.
That's it?
Yeah, Rene Ortega led the Valley with 26. This kid's got 42. That kind of just...
And as a team, they have... In terms of passing yards, as a team, they have 3,600. And what was Los Fresnos' total for the year? It was not even close to that. I have it here.
It was about 2,300, 2,400, somewhere in there.
Right, 2,400-ish. So
a full 1,000 yards off, 1,200 yards off. So.
And if you haven't seen that kind of attack where what they really do is they spread it out and that's pretty much it. They run the ball some, but that's mostly, I mean, they get way up in a lot of these games.
Yep.
So then that's where a lot of the running comes in. You've seen that they've put up a similar total to Los Fresnos on the season, but really so much of that comes in garbage time because they get such these huge leads. And they'll spread it out with 5 wide receivers, and they'll do a lot of things that I've gotten the chance to see them this year and last year as well. So I know what they're capable of a little bit, and it's scary. I don't think that just thinking about facing a more balanced offense than Los Fresnos gets you ready for that. But how about when they got to face them last year? Is that a help at all? Have they drawn anything from that?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I was just asking, I was talking to some of the running backs that I did a feature on this week. I was like, what stood out in that United game last year, excuse me. And defensively, they're just as fast on defense as they are offensively. It's like, every time Wesco tried to run sideline to sideline, linebackers are right there taking away that edge that they were trying to turn around. So this United team is fast on both sides of the ball, and you just look at how efficiently they can just pass the ball and spread things out. And with Wesco, I know that they've shown the ability to pass the ball, but they're not going to. If they get down by a substantial margin, they're going to rely on their quarterback, Daisy Rodriguez, leading them back. That's not how they're going to win this game.
Right.
Their defense has to give that offense a puncher's chance. They have to continue. The offense has to get just one first down at a time. I don't think they're going to necessarily rip off any big plays here. They're going to have to take what they can get and just hope that the defense can kind of contain those receivers and slow them down and jam them up. That's what's going to have to come down to. I think we all picked Laredo United in this one. I picked the score to be 40-28 once more. So.
Last year, that was the score of last year's game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I think in that game, I just pulled up the stats that United threw for 300-something yards and ran for 10, because that's just what they're going to do.
Yep.
And I would think that if they try to run the ball, Wesco should be good enough at stopping them. But you just look at who's Wesco's played this year, and I don't know that they faced a passing attack even remotely.
Oh no! The closest one is Los Fresnos, and like we just said, that's 1,200 yards and 20 touchdowns off from that. So.
I don't think that's. Were you at that game? It's not even the same.
But
style,
what's it called,
right?
Los Fresnos? Yeah. Not really, no.
It's not really the same style of game, is it? Because they're going to run the ball more often.
Yeah, they ran the ball a lot, especially with their quarterback Ortega. He can take off. They never really had much of an empty backfield from what it sounds like this United team can run.
It's always empty backfield.
It'll be tough, but I do think United's going to get this one against Wesco.
Yeah, that team is just really strong. I'd go with that.
Yeah, and they won this district too, 29-6. They won this one. So.
How about Easton Del Rio? What stands out about that much for you?
I don't know much about Del Rio at all. I scoured the internet looking for stats on this team. Nothing really stands out here. I don't know what kind of offensive scheme they run or anything. I haven't had a chance to talk to.
I think it's like 60-40 run. I think they kind of are a physical, bigger team. They just kind of plow people over.
And they're in the same district as United here.
Correct.
So they finished with a record of 8-2. I can look it up here. They are 9-3. They went 4-1 in this district, and I think they lost to United by like a field goal. They weren't blown out by any means, I don't think. As I said, I don't know too many stats on this one, but I did see Del Rio play last year against McAllen Memorial. They were the team that beat the Mustangs there in that first round. And from what I understand, they got a lot of kids back from that team. And if this Del Rio team beat last year's Memorial team, I don't see why they can't beat this year's Wesco East team, especially this year's Wesco East team is not as good as last year's McAllen Memorial team. So
I went back into my notes. I talked to the Palmview coach about Del Rio before they played them. He said 60% pass, 40% run. Pretty balanced overall, but they're big and physical, and that's the big thing.
Yep, and that's what gave McAllen Memorial last year issues. That they couldn't match their size. As fast as Trevor Spates can run, as strong as he is, everyone else on the team, that line was getting blown up play after play after play.
You would think Wesco East would face some of those same issues, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
They're a speed team, right?
Their speed team. The height isn't quite there. They have that famous saying, "East side, strong side," and that is a literal thing for them. They are always in the gym. They make up with their lack of size with strength, and that's how they play so big, despite not being so big. But again, I'm favoring Del Rio in this one because they're big, strong, physical, and I think with their passing game may not be as good as United, but if they can open up a lead, who knows? Who knows? We might see the X Factor, Richard Lefevre, save the season here.
A game like that, you would think it could be close, and maybe a turnover or something makes it different.
Yeah, it could, and you never know. Cito Rojas could have the game of his life. Emilio Thomas could. That's not out of the realm of possibility, but I'm not expecting history here. I'm just expecting typical Del Rio versus Wesco East. I think both these teams are good, but I think Del Rio gets this one for sure. So
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I don't know that Westlaco East has faced a team that's this big and physical. I mean, Westlaco is like the closest, maybe.
Westlaco, maybe Brownsville Vets.
Yeah, and I don't know that either of those really is a good comparison.
No, not to some of these non-Valley teams for sure.
Okay, what else do we want to get to? I guess that's enough for your district. Let's move over.
Well, Dennis isn't here. We've got one team.
Let's cover everything except Mario, and then we'll move Mario.
Our 32-5 reporter, Dennis Silva, could not be here. As I said, it is 1:40 in the morning now. He has one team left. It's Edcott Chelsea versus Somerset. That game will be in Laredo tonight at 7:30 at Shirley Field, which is a wonderful facility, I might add. Hashtag please sponsor us, Shirley Field.
Shirley
Field sponsorship. No.
Why is it good? Why is it good?
Just the facilities there. The facilities there, nice. Press boxes.
Just is
nice.
Mario.
They feed it. They feed you. People are nice there. Anyways, the story with this one for Ed Couch is Marco Aguirre is back. He's been practicing. I saw Dennis said that he was in practice, had pads on out there throwing the ball, and he was on TV. I saw they're interviewing him. Looks like he's good to go. He had that hairline fracture in his finger. His non-throwing hand, from what I understand, he suffered that injury during like week 3, I think, against Edinburgh North, a really rain-soaked game.
Right.
Looks like he's back, and it looks like it's going to. From what I understand with this game is, according to what Dennis has said, Ed Couch is going to be, back to their pass-happy self, and Somerset, they like to run the ball a lot. It's going to be two contrasting styles of offense here, similar to like Ed Couch and Roma. So this is the second straight week where Ed Couch might go up against a team that might be a favorable matchup for them. What do you see? I see looking at Somerset here.
Well, they've won 10 games in a row, John. That's pretty good.
Okay, yep.
They don't have any stats up here or anything like that.
They've won 10 in a row, but are they crushing teams? Are they blowing teams out?
A couple of them were close. Lately, they've been on a pretty good roll, but again, the playoff game against Gregory Portland, they won in overtime.
Okay.
So they could have very easily not been in this game, but I think that's still two really good teams.
Right, yeah, both those teams are really good. I think we all picked Somerset except for Dennis, who picked Ed Couch. I think he's just trying to make up ground in our picket line. But.
Listen, I think anybody who thinks that healthy Marco Aguinaga is not going to play quarterback is crazy.
Right, absolutely.
So I know they're going to start with Segura and whatever. I mean, maybe that won't even happen, but I think you just use your best player in that position as soon as possible.
Comment?
From seeing Ed Couch also play last week, play against Roma, I don't think their coach would be shy to put someone who hasn't played for a while in the starting lineup just because they had Tay Valdez, who missed 3 to 4 games and came back and was scored, I think, like 3 times on the ground. He was responsible for a lot of their points last week, so I don't think there's any hesitance to
you got to go with your best kid in this situation. Just run your best player out there and hope that's good enough for you.
Yeah,
you don't want to feel like you left something in the chamber at the end of the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Marco's your guy. Put him out there, and if he gets hurt, it's the playoffs. This is what it's all about, right? So, not saying that I'm wishing that upon him, but this is one of those things where it's for all the marbles. Your season's at stake here. Why not? Why not go for it for sure? I echo those sentiments as well. Jumping to 32-6A before we bring in Mario. We've got San Benito. We touched on Harlingen and McAllen Memorial. So we got San Benito. Who are they playing, Mr. Greg?
Oh gosh, hold on. It was Laredo somebody, was it not?
Laredo
Alexander.
Oh, playing Laredo Alexander.
They're good.
This is a game where do you think that, Mario?
I saw them play last year. If they're the same team, then yes, but I don't know how they look this season.
They're one of those weird deceptive teams because their record kind of implies, they're just so-so, but then you look at their schedule and all their losses were to playoff teams. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that they're necessarily world beaters by any means. But
they wrecked McAllen High out a bit last week. Just destroyed them. But I all season have not thought McAllen High was that great. But the thing that really jumped out to me about Alexander was the defense. Just the amount of playmakers and speed and size that they had on that side and how often they were in McAllen High's backfield. We talked about how Josh McGowan had 18
carries for 0 yards. Yeah.
And we have the photo that we ran that day of him just sitting there on the field, like confused about why he can't find any room and how he has 0 yards on 18 carries. And that's the kind of thing that they'll do to you. And I don't know that they aren't going to give San Benito's defense a lot of those, or offense a lot of those same problems.
Now San Benito's been a better team than Mac High all season long. So
for sure. But I think that they pose a similar issue in terms of boasting something in that way that a lot of Valley teams don't offer. And on the other side of the ball, it was just that they had screen passes and misdirection runs and draw plays and all sorts of everything you could want on offense. They just gave Mac High fits with that too and scored on 7 of the first 8 possessions. So I think again, the transitive thing is hit or miss, but I think if San Benito played McAllen High, they wouldn't be able to put it on them quite like that. That was something else that they showed last week. So I think I have to favor Alexander in that game because I think that
Right.
Alexander is just really strong.
That game will be in Calallen. That kickoff is at 7 o'clock, and that is around the Corpus Christi area, from what I understand. There is one 4A team of the sub 5A teams. We got one left. They are playing Saturday. It's LaFerrier versus China Spring. That game is at Converse. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. We're all picking China Spring. Was LaFerrier? We were pretty high on LaFerrier last week, beating Beeville.
Yeah, I think I had that one.
It seems like China Spring, though, they're what 10-1.
China Spring is indeed 10-1, and yeah, they were pretty good. They won their first round game 63-12.
Yeah.
And LaFerrier has had a great season, but again, they have a decent amount of close wins in here. It seems like, and I don't know that they're on that kind of a level. So.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, I've been interested to see what happens here in terms of those games we just ran through. Now is it time for Mr. Mario? You got 3 games.
Yeah, this guy's big time. All right,
Mr.
switch it up.
Mr. 31-5A. Let's get our 31-5A reporter in here.
If you hear any snoring, it's definitely not me.
This podcast is brought to you by
Seriously.
NyQuil. Or like the Sacramento Kings, their arena is the Sleep Train Arena.
That's the worst name in the league.
The Smoothie King Arena
What is that?
in New Orleans.
Oh, man.
Although I think smoothies are cooler than sleep trains. Although, could you imagine like a literal sleep train, like a train made of mattresses?
Yeah. Oh my god, that would be so cool.
That would be cool. You know what? I'm back on the sleep train bandwagon.
That's just an efficient way to travel. You have to get your sleep in at the same time.
Well, hopefully Mario won't be taking any trips on the sleep train all the way up to Kingsville. Here.
Actually, might because Joel's driving, I think.
Oh, there you go. Our photographer Joel will be joining you on this one. You have 3 games to cover, but you're going to be at 2.
Yeah.
Let's start with the one you're going to be at on Friday night. It's Sharyland High versus Corpus Christi Calallen. That game is at 7:30 p.m. at Javelina Stadium in Kingsville. If you're going to any of these games, by the way, please be safe. Please be safe going there and coming home and have fun on the way. So what do you see in this one? This is a rematch, is it not?
Yeah.
What happened last year?
Last year, Sharyland upset Calallen. I think it's fair to say because a lot of us had Calallen. What was really surprising was the way that Sharyland won. They won 28-0. It was the first time that Calallen had been beaten by a Valley team, or a Valley team in the playoffs, one of those two.
Okay.
And Calallen hadn't been shut out since playing the state championship in 2006 or 2008. So this is a powerhouse. Their coach is Phil Danaher. He's the second winningest coach in state history. And he was shocked just in the way they lost because the previous week they had scored between 50 and 70 points. So Sharyland really surprised him. This year I don't see that. I think Calallen has been the much better team. They're 9-2. They have a dual threat quarterback who's thrown for 15 touchdowns and has scored 12 times on the ground. And even though Sharyland I think has had a good season considering just the turnover that they've had, and I think this is where the road ends for them. I don't think that's a stretch. I mean, they're 7-4. They've won 4 in a row now, but I think just Calallen has too much there with the firepower that they have, and I don't see them winning 2 in a row.
If Sharyland is going to pull an upset here for a second straight year, what's got to go their way? What do they got to do?
I think a lot of it's just playing mistake-free ball, and I guess what they have going in their favor is same thing as I had said about Harlingen High, which is they played a lot of competitive games. They played Vela where they lost by 1 point. They played a close game against Mission Vets where they rallied to win, but I think it was like 28-23. So they've had these competitive games. McGowan Memorial, for what it's worth, they played them closely for a half or whatever it was, and then they beat Laredo United, I think, earlier this season. Mm-hmm. So they have quality wins this season. If they were to win, I'd be a bit surprised just because I'm a little bit high on Calallen this season. They play in a competitive district in 35A. They finished tied for the district record there with Victoria East, so I'm a lot more sure of Calallen in this game.
Final score. Give us a score here.
In my capsule, I had 35-20. If it's wider than that, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. There's another game, Mission Vets. They will be playing Victoria West. That game is in Corpus Christi. That's at Buccaneer Stadium. Victoria West seems like they're in the same district here as Calallen. They were the district champions here. At least they split with Calallen. Seems like Victoria West is going to be a really tough matchup against Mission Vets here. What do you see happening?
I saw Victoria West last season. They played against Edinburgh Bell in the second round. They had this, Greg will remember this, they had this kid named Jamarcus Gurdy, their dual threat quarterback. This season he's thrown for 11 touchdowns, and he's rushed for 25. And just really good player last year against Valley. He had like 7 touchdowns, maybe 8. And just really tough to stop. And against the Mission Veterans Memorial, their strength on defense is in the secondary, so it'll be interesting to see how they try to slow him down. Mission Veterans Memorial last week, they lost for the first time in 4 games, I believe, since they had Landry Gilman under center. So last year, Mission Vets lost in the second round. There's no shame against losing this time again in the second round, considering the circumstances. They lost one of their top running backs for most of the season. They lost a starting quarterback, as we know.
Right.
So I have Victoria West winning this, and pretty comfortably. I had them at 42-21.
Well, there's another Victoria team playing another Valley team this week.
They are deep.
This will be on Saturday. You'll be at this game as well.
Yes.
This is Corpus Christi at Buccaneer Stadium. It's Edinburgh Bell versus Victoria East. We're all pretty high on Vella in this one. I think everyone here at the office at least has Vella going to the third round in this one. Why do you favor the SaberCats in this matchup? What stands out to you?
In this game, I'll admit I was wrong here. I thought Vella would lose in the second round as part of my preseason prediction, but I think they've had kind of things line up in a way to where I think at the very least they should go to the third round. This year they opened with Porter, who had a good season after a couple winless years, and now they have Victoria East, which is 7-2, and this might be their biggest challenge yet. I mean, they had a non-district schedule that against teams that I'm not sure are in the playoffs. I mean, they had Pace. I'm trying to think of the other teams. They had
PSG Memorial.
PSG Memorial, not in the playoffs, right?
No, they're not in the playoffs.
Then let's see. I know this is captivating. Let's see. So I mean, this will be Edinburgh Bell's biggest challenge. They have a lot of players coming back from last season that played in the second round. I don't think that'll be a shock for any of them to see this level of competition. By the same token, I think it might be their next competitive game after Sharyland High.
What if, this one knock against Vella all season was their defense isn't as strong as it might need to be. Like, yeah, they're dropping 70 points, but there might come a day when they need to drop 70 points because the defense can't get any stops. You look here at Victoria East and just looking on their Max Preps page, they get about close to 300 yards receiving per game to 279. And even rushing yards per game, they're right up there about 200. So they get ballpark, like 500 yards a game close to, it sounds like, just picking off their Max Preps. Is this something that you're going to be looking to see here, how this Bella defense is going to go against an offense that, the wins haven't necessarily been there. They're only 5-3 in district, but they've been able to put up some numbers.
Well, I think this has been a concern, I think, kind of dating back to last season, where it seemed like they allowed what was the opposing team's season high or close to it.
Yeah.
To Pace, they gave up 27 points to Pace. Harlingen South was 40. They were ahead pretty comfortably, but then they gave up a lot of points in the second half to Harlingen South. La Jolla, they did a wall 37-7, and then PSG Memorial, they allowed 14. But then you have those shootouts, which Vella's kind of used to, where they won, they beat Sharyland 48-47. And then last season, I think, is where they kind of struggled in that they came up against another team like them in Victoria West that had a lot of fire and a lot of firepower, and was able to stand toe-to-toe with them.
What do you see happening here? What's the score?
Let's see. On the capsules, I had Edinburgh Vella 42-24. I'm pretty sure that. I know they give up a lot of points, but they score a lot too. And in district, they won by the widest margin in district. And at some point this season, when I looked, they were winning by the second widest margin in the valley, right after McGowan Memorial.
I'm looking here on UIL's website. Do you know who Bella's going to play in the third round if they win this game?
It's 1 week at a time.
Looks like they're going to get. Looks like the winner of this one gets the privilege of playing San Marcos or Vandergrift. So
Vandergrift is state ranked.
Yeah, Vandergrift is state ranked. So if Vella gets past Victoria East here, it looks like they might finally get a team that might be able to stop them. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. They got to get through Victoria East, as you said, one game at a time, right?
Well, here's the thing. Last year, when Vella won in the second round, they stood there with. Let me see. I'm pulling up the stats from last year. So last year they played Victoria West in the second round. They lost 61-45, and I covered that game. They were hanging in. They were pretty tight until the third quarter, and then Victoria West took it. And I remember there was this critical drive where Coach Salinas had called for his quarterback just to just heaved some Hail Marys, and they came up empty 4 times in a row, turned over on downs, and then Victoria West just scored from there and kind of pulled away. And after the game, I asked him about just the decision, just kind of the thought process behind that, and kind of taking that risk when they were hanging in there. He took blame for that, but I would have been curious to see what would have happened had Vela not gambled, and if they would have just tried to move the chains gradually. I didn't see a rush, but I think from Salinas' point of view, and he didn't tell me this, I imagine they figured they probably couldn't stand. They couldn't keep up toe-to-toe with Victoria West, which has a ton of athletes. I figured maybe they just went for it all on that series.
Anything else you want to chit-chat about, or?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, if I had to pick a lock of the week, I don't know if we're still doing that for the playoffs.
We totally spaced on a lock of the week.
Of course we are still doing.
Let's do a lock of the week then.
And we hit the reset button, right, for the playoffs?
No,
we don't hit the reset button.
Because I think I picked every team in my district, so I can't pick.
Nope. Well, in the second week now, you can pick non-Valley schools.
Okay. No, you can pick the whole. You damn it. Okay.
What?
No, I guess you can.
Yeah.
So
it'd be tough to, but it would be great if you had to go down with the shit.
Well, my lock of the week, I guess, would have to be Victoria West over Mission Veterans Memorial. I think that was pretty unanimous. But if I had a second one, and I'm sure I picked Vela at some point.
Yeah, you picked Vela week 1.
Yeah, did I?
Yeah, you picked Vela week 1.
I think that was a great pick in the sense that I didn't really gamble with that. Like, Greg is the conservative, had the conservative picks for save of the week, and I did more what Greg would consider the bold pick of the week. And still perfect heading into week 13.
First of all, it was not the bold pick of the week.
That's what you called it, though.
For Dennis,
it's not the bold pick of the week.
For Dennis, since he's not here, we're going to pick 4, and we're going to make his lock of the week Ed Couch, because he'll love that. So.
Well, I mean, he did pick it on the...
Yeah, but we're going to make it his lock of the week, so he'll get Ed Couch. That's his lock of the week. For
I'll
me,
take Laredo United.
You're taking Laredo United over Weslaco. I'm taking China Spring over LaFeria.
I had never heard of China Spring, but then I saw the record and all that, and I was impressed.
Yep. I'm taking them. So only Ed Couch gets the Valley vote for lock of the week this week.
They have a pretty good gym. You know, I don't know if you've been to their gym.
Oh yeah.
I went to their.
We got the honeycomb court.
I went to their middle school. It's a replica of that.
Huh.
The only bad thing was that they only had the scoreboard on one side.
Oh.
So I never paid attention to this, but then I noticed that the players were all looking back. So every time they passed, they would all look at the clock, like in the last possession of the half.
Nah, that is no bueno. That is no. Well, speaking of basketball, boys basketball season started this week. You were at a tournament. You wrote a story about a young man from Weslaco East. Briefly, before we get going here, what did you learn about this young man, Mr. Ortiz, Mr. Jesus Ortiz? Weslaco East.
Jesus Ortiz. If I had to pick an NBA comp, I would say David West.
Mid-range.
Yeah, he's 5'11". Coach said that he thought he was undersized to play in the post, but we're in the Valley, so I think he's appropriately sized.
Yeah.
I think he's more or less there.
Yeah, he's more than appropriately sized. Yeah.
And has muscle to him. He had 19 points today, 3 threes. Eddie Couch also, Weslaco East improved to 2-1. He's taking on more of a leadership role this season. Last year they missed the playoffs, lost the second to last game to Edinburgh North. Then Edinburgh North got into the postseason for the 5th straight year, but Weslaco East missed out. They haven't made it since Jesus has been there with the team, so he's kind of taking a hold of that team now and trying to get them in the playoff hunt.
For me, there's the big border bash going on this weekend at McAllen High for all the McAllen ISD schools, and I think there's in 3 days. There's 145 games, 54 teams. It's insane. They played I think 56 games today just to get through the next couple rounds. So I covered. I wrote a feature on Sydney Pembleton. I know people know her from volleyball there at Mac High, but she is returning to the varsity basketball team. She was supposed to play last year. She left the team due to personal reasons. And from there, just a whole string of bad luck happened for Mac High last year. On paper, they were going to be this really solid inside-out team, and then all their posts got hurt or they left, and they were left with just a bunch of jump shooters, and they never really quite made the transition pretty well. This year, Pembleton is back. They've got Sabrina Guzman now, who's another post for them. They had one down year, and they got that good draft pick, and then now they're going for the district championship again. No, but I was just curious to see how Mac High was looking here in the early part of the year. They won both their games. They beat Zapata and Brownsville Lopez, I think. They had a pretty easy first day, but things will get harder tomorrow because I think they might have to play a San Antonio school. But we'll see. Speaking of San Antonio schools, Weslaco High beat San Antonio Churchill tonight, 54-52. They were one of only a few Valley teams to beat. I think they were the only Valley team to beat a non-Valley team in the first round. I think.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and double check, but I talked to Coach Fino at Weslaco High. This is the first time she's beat a San Antonio school with that team.
Cool.
So congrats to the Lady Panthers there.
I was going to ask you, is Sydney Hamilton the tallest girls basketball player in the Valley? And I asked because I covered her in volleyball, and she was
She's 6'1". I think her and Anna Marshall from Sherilyn High are up there. They're both 6'1". I think Harlinger might have a 6'1" girl. I think Ebony Johnson Memorial might be 6'1". I don't think there's one. I think they're all about the same height, but she's right up there. I think her and Anna Marshall are up there. So
I was surprised to learn that there was more than one 6'5", 6'6" player in the Valley. I think DJ Johnson. How tall do you think he is, Greg?
About 6'4", probably.
Okay, they have him at
I can check their roster.
They have him at 6'6", I think, or at least their coach. I got that figure somewhere.
The quarterback,
He's
Jonathan
6'7", right?
Sanchez, if he plays, he's about that height. Yeah.
Okay, and so Sherilyn has a kid who's 6'6", 6'7", who transferred from Memorial to Sherilyn. Had to sit out the 365 days, so he'll play early January. So there's more tall players in the Valley than I thought. Just the DJ Johnson. There's the kid for Sherilyn.
something in the water.
Yeah.
Even the Free brothers at Weslaco, they got some height to them as well. So
Yeah.
especially Justice with his high top fade, he's doing his best Amon Shumpert cut there. So
I asked the coach David Keith at Sherilyn how he just how to explain the height there, because last season they had Pat DeLatorre who was 6'5", and then Jose De La Garza was 6'7".
it's growth hormone. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Mm.
It's human growth hormone. No, I'm teasing.
Is it too late to take it?
Yeah. Since we're touching on other sports, I'll briefly say that swimming and diving teams, there are some in Corpus and there are some in Weslaco these next couple days. So props to them and for getting their work done. District's right around the corner for those teams. So
Wrestling's leading another way too.
Wrestling's about to start. Greg, UTRGV basketball, men and women's is going on, and Vipers are going on. It's the busiest time of the year for us, for sure, here in the sports department. With that,
Hashtag no sleep.
hashtag Team No Sleep, especially these next couple days. My goodness. With that, I think we got a show, do we not?
I would agree.
Greg's giving the thumbs up. He wants to go eat some more taco palenque. With that, we will call it a show. We appreciate you checking us out on the podcast, whether Periscope or the YouTube, or whichever way you find this audio or video. We are on RGVSports.com. We are that same title on Facebook, RGVSports.com. What are we on Twitter, Mario?
RGVSports.com.
No, we're just RGV Sports.
RGV Sports.
At
Oh
RGV
my
Sports.
God, he doesn't even know.
Periscope. Well, because the little name shows up as RGVSports.com.
Right, but we're just at RGV Sports on Twitter and Periscope. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Jon R.
Mario_Aguirre.
At Greg Luca.
And we'll be back next week. Who knows how many teams? It might be a short show next week. We might only have 3 teams at most, maybe only even 1. Who knows? We'll see what happens. We know we're going to have at least 1. Harlingen Memorial. We're going to have at least 1 Valley team left next week in the third round. But you never know. What if the whole offensive line just breaks their legs in the first play?
We don't want that.
I know we don't want that. I'm not showing those kids. Anyways, don't break your legs, kids. We'll be back next week, getting ready for whatever the cards may deal our way. Thank you so much.